All right, you know that feeling, right? Where you've spent hours and hours with English grammars making sense. Vocab's pretty good. You can understand shows pretty well, but then you actually have to speak, and it's like, whoa, where did it all go?
It's like your tongue betrays you, right?
Totally.
Like I
Yeah.
studied all this stuff and now I can't.
Yeah, that frustrating wall between understanding and actually being able to speak fluently.
Yeah.
That's exactly what we're going to tackle
That's
today.
what we're here for today. Yeah. And we're doing this, I think, with a very practical lens.
Yeah.
We've been looking at an intermediate English listening practice video
Hmm.
and a Learn English with Podcast conversation episode.
Yeah, great sources.
Really good sources. I think sort of roadmaps in a way from experience to help people navigate that journey
Totally.
from comprehension
Yeah.
to
You're
confident
thinking it out. Yeah.
spoken English.
Yeah. So our goal in this deep dive is to extract, those daily habits, those
Yeah.
real world strategies that can genuinely help you unlock fluency. So not just the theories, or the promises that you'll learn it overnight.
Like the quick fixes.
Yeah, we're honing in on what actually works and what people who've been there and done that have said, this is how you actually do it.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that's what's so valuable about these sources is it's not just sort of abstract theory. It's really grounded in personal experience.
Yeah, so let's jump right in. The first one that the video creator really highlighted was this idea of shadow and speak.
Ah, yeah. I love that. And what I find so interesting about it is it goes beyond just repeating words, right?
Right.
It's about actively engaging with the music of English in
Yeah.
a way.
Yeah.
You're listening to a native speaker and immediately trying to mirror them.
Yeah.
Not just the words themselves, but the rhythm, the intonation, like the rise and fall of their voice,
Mm-hmm.
how they connect sounds together. And I think that's what makes it a very powerful tool.
Yeah, they even had this analogy I thought was really cool. Karaoke for English fluency.
Ah, I love that.
It's like training your mouth and your ear to actually move
Yes.
with the music of the language.
Totally, like in harmony with how it's actually spoken, right?
Yes, and the point that they made that I thought was really important was, we don't just learn language through intellectual understanding, of rules.
Right.
We also absorb it through imitation.
Our mimicking. Yeah.
And shadowing is like a really powerful way to absorb those natural speech patterns.
Exactly. It's like the subtle ways that words link together, the emphasis on certain syllables, the natural pauses that we make
Yeah.
that often aren't taught explicitly in textbooks.
Right.
You pick that up through this kind of embodied practice.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's all about building that flow.
That flow, yeah, that naturalness. Yeah.
Yeah. So if we think about, how we learn our first language,
Yeah.
the baby doesn't sit there with a grammar book,
No,
right? They're just listening and absorbing and imitating.
totally. And I think shadowing in a way taps back into that innate ability that we all have.
Yeah. And it's interesting. They actually shared in the video somebody who had tried it. And at first, they really struggled to shadow even like a 30-second podcast clip.
Yeah, it can be challenging at first, absolutely.
But they said after 2 weeks of like just doing it, consistently every day for 10 minutes even,
Yeah,
they felt such a huge improvement.
like a significant difference.
Yeah. And the cool thing they said was like my whole system was syncing with the real English.
Yeah, and I think that's the goal, right? Is to move away from that feeling of like translation,
Yeah.
where you're constantly having to go back and forth.
Like, oh, what does that word mean?
Exactly. You're starting to think and process more directly in English.
So that was a big one that they highlighted.
Yeah, and I think that's the ultimate goal, right? For a lot of learners is to be able to have that more immediate processing.
Yeah. So for you listening to this, here are some practical steps.
Yeah.
First you want to find some short audio or video clips.
Yeah, keep it manageable.
30 to 60 seconds, something like that.
Yeah, you don't want to overwhelm yourself right from the get-go.
And initially it's good to have subtitles.
Yeah, I think that can be really helpful at first.
Just so you know.
Just so you can make sure you're hearing the words correctly.
Yeah, but the goal is to not need those.
Exactly. Train your ear to work independently.
Yeah, so the video suggested listen to one sentence,
Uh-huh.
pause it, and then repeat it out loud.
Yeah, like really try to get the pronunciation and the rhythm
Yeah, as close to the word.
as close as you can. Yeah.
And then you can play it again and try to shadow in real time.
like speak along with the speaker.
And they said, and this is true, it's going to feel awkward at first.
Oh yeah, you're going to make mistakes.
Totally.
It's part of the process.
Yeah, that's not a setback.
It's a necessary part of learning.
That's part of it.
Like you're not going to sound perfect right away,
Yeah.
and that's okay.
But the payoff is huge because you're basically training like all those complex things in your mouth and your ear and your brain.
You're training the coordination between all those different systems.
Yeah, so it's like really powerful for improving pronunciation, building your confidence, and eventually, like we were saying, starting to think more directly in English.
And I think the key here is consistency, right?
Yes.
Even if it's just 10 minutes a day, that focused shadowing can make a big difference.
Yeah.
Over time, you're internalizing the melody of the language.
Yeah, so for you, it's like really actively engaging with the language in a very specific way.
Yeah.
Like almost like a musician would practice.
Yeah, like you're learning a musical instrument by playing along with recordings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on to the second one. They said this is non-negotiable. This is essential if you want to be fluent.
Yeah.
And they called it the input hour.
Oh, that's a good one.
And the core principle here is
Yeah.
you speak what you hear.
You speak what you hear. So true.
Right.
It's such a simple but profound principle. It's about recognizing that connection between the language you're consistently exposed to
Yeah.
and your own ability to produce it.
Yeah.
So the key here is dedicating 1 full hour each day,
Every day.
every single day, to listening to natural native level English.
And this isn't, lectures or, really
This is not textbook stuff.
Yeah, this is not the the teacher in the classroom talking slowly.
This is the real deal.
Yeah.
This is how people actually speak out in the world.
Yeah, so think, YouTube videos that you're interested in,
Yeah.
podcasts,
Podcasts, TV shows, Netflix series,
interviews, documentaries.
anything where native speakers are just talking naturally.
Right, just being themselves. Yeah, and here's the kicker. They said, if possible, no subtitles.
Yeah, it's a tough one for a lot of people.
But their reasoning was really interesting.
But I think it makes a lot of sense.
They said it forces your brain to actually listen.
Right. Instead of relying on the written word,
Yeah.
your brain has to wake up and pay attention to the sounds, to the nuances, to the context.
And I can hear people now going, but I'm going to miss so much if I don't have the subtitles.
Yeah, that's a common concern for sure.
But they actually addressed that too.
Right.
They said fluency isn't about catching every single word.
No, it's about getting the gist.
Yeah, it's about understanding
The general, meaning the flow,
the rhythm of it.
the overall message.
And they even shared, they said, I picked this podcast and I understood like barely anything at first,
It can be a little overwhelming.
but I just kept listening.
Yeah.
And over time I started to hear, gonna want, all those contractions.
Those are the ones that always trip people up.
Right.
Like, and
Yeah.
all those little filler words
Yeah, it's interesting.
that are so common in natural speech.
Yeah, so that gradual absorption is really key.
Exactly.
The more natural English you listen to,
Yeah, the more you're exposed to,
the more natural your output will be.
exactly. Your
Yeah.
brain is just soaking it all up.
Yeah, so practically speaking, they said choose an hour of content that you actually enjoy.
Yeah, make it something you're interested in.
That makes a huge difference.
It shouldn't feel like a chore.
Yeah, if you want to break it up into chunks,
Yeah, totally do what works for you.
you don't have to sit there for a whole hour.
Right.
Subtitles occasionally at the beginning maybe, but the goal is to get rid of them.
Wean yourself off of them.
Yeah, and it's really about just exposing yourself and letting your brain absorb.
Right. Don't overthink it.
Yeah, don't stress about every word.
Just let it wash over you.
Yeah.
And your brain will start to make those connections.
It's about immersing yourself in the language.
Exactly.
Even if you don't live in an English-speaking country.
Create your own little English bubble.
Yeah. Okay, habit number 3.
Right.
This one might sound a little strange.
Okay. I'm intrigued.
Talk to yourself.
Oh, that's a good one.
I know, right?
Talk to yourself.
But they actually make a really good argument for it.
Okay. I'm curious to hear this.
So what's so insightful about this is it gets rid of like a lot of the psychological barriers.
Oh, okay.
When you're trying to speak a new language.
Right. All that fear and self-judgment.
Yeah, you're afraid to make mistakes. People are going to judge you. You're not going to be understood.
You're putting so much pressure on yourself.
Yeah. So they said when you're talking to yourself,
Uh-huh.
you're completely eliminating all that.
It's just you.
Yeah.
No judgment.
It's a safe space.
Your own little practice zone.
You can just experiment and play with language.
I love that.
So they said they started really casually, like just narrating their day.
Okay.
Like brushing my teeth. I'm brushing my teeth now.
Keep it simple.
Cooking.
Yeah.
I'm making dinner right now or whatever.
Everyday activities.
Walking the dog.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the idea is, speaking is like a muscle.
Right. It needs exercise.
Yeah. And if you don't use it, you lose it.
Yeah. Use it or lose it.
And this directly helps you with thinking in English. Instead of translating in your head.
So you're not going from your native language to English.
Yeah, you're going straight to English.
You're training your brain to think in English directly.
And they described this progression, at first it was awkward.
Yeah, that's understandable.
But then they said, I'm having full-blown conversations with myself now.
Wow.
In English.
That's amazing.
Like arguing with myself about what groceries to buy.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's so relatable. We all have those internal debates.
Yeah, but now it's in English.
Well, now it's in English, so that's fantastic.
Yeah, so how can you start doing this?
Yeah. What are some practical tips?
Pick a time of day,
Uh-huh.
Your commute, getting ready in the morning.
Yeah.
And just describe
What are you doing?
what you're doing.
What are your plans?
Don't worry about perfect grammar.
Don't overthink it.
Yeah. Don't try to sound super
You
fancy.
can fit the words out.
Just get it out. Yeah. And they also suggested recording yourself.
Oh, that's a good one.
Which I know sounds a little weird.
It can be a little cringy at first, but it's so valuable.
Yeah, because then you can actually hear
You can hear yourself from an outside perspective
how you sound.
and notice things that you might not be aware of.
Yeah, so it's like, if you can't talk to yourself in English,
Yeah.
how are you going to talk to somebody else?
Right, exactly.
So this is all about building that confidence.
It's like your own personal practice zone.
Yeah.
Where you can just let go and experiment.
Yeah, and just let it flow.
Exactly.
Okay.
All right. What's next?
Number 4.
Okay.
This one was really interesting for vocabulary.
Vocabulary, everybody's favorite.
They called it 1 new word, 3 sentences.
Okay. 1 new word, 3 sentences.
Yeah, and it sounds so simple.
It does sound deceptively simple.
But it's apparently very powerful.
Okay. I'm intrigued.
They said, most people try to learn vocabulary by memorizing these long lists.
Right. The classic word list.
And then they forget most of them.
Which we've all been there.
Right.
You study, 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 and then it's gone.
Yeah, so this is about going deep with one word.
Okay. So quality over quantity.
Exactly. So 1 new word each day.
Mm-hmm.
Use it in 3 original sentences.
Okay.
So they have this example.
Okay.
The word hesitate.
Hesitate. All right.
You look up the meaning.
Okay. So understand what it means.
Yeah. To pause before doing something because you're nervous or unsure,
And
and then you come up with 3 sentences.
okay. So using the word in context.
Yeah, but personal.
That's interesting.
The year.
Make it relevant to your life.
Yeah, so, I always hesitate before sending long messages.
That's a good one.
She didn't hesitate to help me when I needed her.
That's great.
Why do I hesitate every time I speak English?
Yeah. Very relatable.
So it's like you're actually using the word in a way that's meaningful to you.
And that's how it sticks.
Yeah.
Right? You're not just memorizing a definition.
And they shared this funny little story. Okay.
They said they learned the word overwhelmed.
Overwhelmed.
And they were in a conversation.
Uh-huh.
And it just came out
Oh, wow.
naturally.
That's the dream.
Right.
When you can use it without even thinking about it.
And they were like, that was a little victory.
I love that.
It's
those little wins that keep you motivated.
Yeah. And think about it. After a month,
Yeah.
30 new words
That's a lot
that you really know.
that you can actually use.
90 sentences that you could use.
Oh, wow.
Right?
That's powerful.
So it's a different way to think about vocabulary.
It is. It's about building that depth
Yeah, not just breadth, but depth.
rather than just having this huge list
You're right.
of words that you kind of sort of know.
Yeah.
This is about really owning those words
Yeah.
and being able to use them confidently.
Okay. And the final one, the big one.
Okay, the grand finale.
The game changer, they said.
All right, let's hear it.
The Real Talk Challenge.
Ooh, the Real Talk Challenge.
I know, right?
I like the sound of that. And they basically said, all those other habits are great,
Yeah. They build us a foundation.
but nothing transforms your fluency like actually
No.
using it.
Right. Putting it into practice.
With real people?
In real conversations.
Yeah.
That's where the magic happens.
And they acknowledge that it's scary.
Yeah, it can be super intimidating.
You're afraid of making mistakes.
People not understanding.
Pleasing up.
Feeling embarrassed.
They said they felt all those things.
We've all been there.
But they said that's where fluency lives.
You can't escape it.
Yeah.
You got to dive in.
So, Real Talk Challenge.
Right?
1 real or recorded English conversation every single day.
Wow. That's a commitment.
Yeah. So they shared this story. They joined a WhatsApp group,
Okay.
a small one in
Oh.
English.
All right.
And at first they didn't say anything,
Yeah. It's scary to jump in.
but then they started with short replies.
Baby steps.
Yeah.
Just testing the waters.
And then they did a voice note.
Oh, wow.
And the group was really encouraging.
That's so important
Yeah, no
to
judges.
have that supportive
It's
environment.
just encouragement.
Yeah,
And they said that just like shattered their fear,
I love that.
you know?
That's amazing.
So they committed to that even if they didn't have a conversation partner.
Yeah.
They would record themselves,
Wow, dedication.
you know, and they said the results were incredible,
Okay.
more confident, self-correcting their grammar,
Wow.
no more hesitation.
Like it just started flowing out?
Yeah, and they made this really cool point. They said speaking is not the final step.
Right.
It's not like
It's not the end goal.
learn all this stuff and then you speak.
Yeah.
They said it's the engine.
It drives the whole process. I
Yeah.
love that analogy.
So for you, practically speaking,
Yeah.
find a WhatsApp group.
Telegram, Discord.
Yeah, language exchange app.
Yeah, there's so many resources out there.
Even if you just start with like an AI voice.
Yeah, just to get comfortable with the act of speaking.
Yeah.
If that feels less intimidating.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a great starting point.
The point is to show up every day and speak.
Exactly.
Even if it's just a little bit.
Even if it's messy.
Yeah, even if you're making mistakes.
It's all part of the process.
This is what moves you from learning English to
Getting it.
actually living in English.
Embodying the language.
Yeah.
Making it a part of your life.
So powerful, right?
It is. It's about that shift in mindset.
Yeah, so you've reached the end of this deep dive.
Wow.
And the fact that you've listened to this whole thing shows you're serious.
You're committed
You're ready to really get fluent.
to take your English to the next level.
Yeah, and the core message here is it's not some far-off goal,
No.
you know, fluency.
It's built day by day.
Yeah, it's about those little habits.
Those consistent actions.
Yeah, so just to recap the 5.
So let's go through them.
Shadowing,
Shadowing,
input hour,
input hour. Got to get that listening in.
talk to yourself.
Talk to yourself, even if it feels weird.
1 new word, 3 sentences.
Quality over quantity with vocabulary.
Yes, and the real talk challenge.
The Real Talk Challenge, get out there and speak.
Yeah, and they said, you know, these aren't instant solutions.
No, they require effort.
But like they said,
Yeah.
they work if you do.
You got to put in the work,
Yeah.
but the results are worth it.
So here's a challenge for you. 21 days.
21 days.
Try incorporating these habits.
See what happens.
Yeah, just notice what happens to your confidence.
Notice how English starts to feel
Yeah, does it start to feel less like a subject?
more natural, more integrated into your life.
More like something you live in?
Exactly.
And we really believe you can do this.
You absolutely can.
You've got this.
We believe in you.
Okay, and as a final thought to leave you with,
Yes.
think about which of these habits resonates the most with you.
Ooh, that's a good question.
Right now,
Yeah.
why do you think that one stands out?
What is it about that habit that appeals to you or maybe even intimidates you?
Yeah, maybe it's the one you need to focus on the most.
Right. Maybe it's highlighting something about your current approach.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's the biggest hurdle that you feel is in your way.
Yeah.
So that's something to reflect on.
Food for thought.
Exactly.
All right, well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive,
It's been a great conversation.
and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, see you next time.
Bye.